miners.
All right, folks, you're 1,500 feet from the front of the mine. You got over 1,800 feet of this gray rock up above you. It also goes to the core of this earth. Now, folks, I told you there's about 5,000 miles of railroad track underneath you. What I want you to do, since I know where all the holes are, I want you to step off these cars, come and go with me. But I want you to please use your life. Because I've got rails sitting off the floor. Come and go with me.
Like way back in the day, before we had four motors, we used to have to go out.
All right, I'm going to stop right here. I want you to stop and lean up against the wall about where that's far enough. Just back up against that wall.
That's not a bike I want to ride.
All right, the reason I have you up against that wall is, if it should happen to fall, I'm going to be okay. Now, I want you to look at something. 1, 2, 3, 4 chute doors. Behind them chute doors is a great big hole called a pocket. And it goes from this level to the next 2 levels up. That's how they transferred ore from up above to this level to take it out. Now then, back in 1915, they hired stout young men, and they brought them down here. They gave them a job called trammer. That young man would come down here, take a car like this, called an A car, holds 3/4 of a ton of rock. He'd push it up under one of these chutes, get on a little platform, open up that door, and fill it up. Then on this level of this mine, he got behind this car and he pushed it to the front of the mine, dumped it, and came back all day long. Then somewhere in around 1917, they brought the mules underground. Now the mules did quite well, but you got to understand something. Them mules were smarter than a bunch of miners. They formed the first union. They would pull 4 of these cars and no more. When they tried to give him that 5th car and that mule heard that 5th chain pop, he quit pulling. Take that 5th car off, way that mule would go to the front of the mine, get his cars dumped, and then come back. Then in around 1925, that little motor that I pulled you in here with, called a Manchi motor, came underground. Pulled about 25 of these cars, and the mules were all taken out and put in a pasture. Now then, up in that stope, told you I wound up being a crosscut man. You obviously figured it out. I was called a bonus hound. I wanted to make money. Well, there was times, though, that I'd come to work, step up to catch that cage to go down, and my good shift boss, Bob Hart, would walk up and say, "Benny, you can't go to crosscuts today. All of the pockets are full. There's no place to have your rock dumped. So what we're going to do is we're sending you and your partner 2 levels down below. We're splitting up a train crew. You're going to go with Charlie Ray. Your partner's going to go with Hernandez. You guys have got to pull rock till you get the pockets all pulled down." Didn't want to do it, but I didn't have a choice. So now I'm down here pulling rock. Now I told you those mines were wet. You had water running out of these chutes, getting in a ditch, headed towards them pumps. Well, there was times you'd pull up with one of these trains, you'd get up on that little platform, you'd open up that door, and that wet rock would run out of there like a river itself. The next one you come to, you'd open up that door, nothing could come out. It was like glue, paste, gumbo. And they had this little bright idea, we're going to put across this car what is called a laggin. Now, a laggin is a 2x12, 5 foot long. You're going to step from that platform onto that laggin, prop that door open, then take a steel bar like this, called a chute bar, and stand up in that hole and start bumping 800-900 tons of loose rock.
Oh my God.
It'll come down. If it comes down too fast, too quick, and you can't get this bar out of that door in time, you have a spill. That means you're on your hands and knees down here digging rocks out from under these wheels. And what kind of shovel did they put around these chutes? How about a square point shovel with a 3-foot handle? I got tired of that. And I went and found an old swamper. Now, he'd been on them trains for years. I said, how do you do this day in and day out? Because every time I stick that steel bar up in that hole, rocks come down, they hit in my hands, my knees are killing me. And he looked at me and he says, what's the matter with you, Benny? You're a miner. Why don't you let the Indian get it down? Well, I knew who the Indian was. The Indian happened to be dynamite from the Apache powder plant out of Benson, Arizona. Take a stick of dynamite, tape it to a stick, take a 12-foot fuse, cut off 6 feet of it, open that door and shove it right up next to that rock. Be sure you shut the door before you light it. You light it, you tell that motorman, you go down that way and guard, I'm going to go this way and guard, because I didn't want anybody to walk by that chute till that shot goes off. Let's let these people walk right on through.
You light up my life.
There's a skeleton back there.
Spoiler.
Not really.
Did you leave any back there, Frank?
Yeah, I'm gonna let him. I'm gonna let you take him back.
Okay.
He's over there taking pictures, so.
All right, once that shot goes off, I come back. Now, if that door's full of rock, it's called rock in the box. If there's not much in it, it's called a hatful. And if all I got out of that blast was a hatful, that meant I had to walk all the way back to the powder magazine to get another stick of dynamite, because if they caught me walking around the mine with an extra stick of dynamite in my hip pocket, they'd give me 3 days off. Well, I've been blasting on one of them chutes for a while. Bob Hart comes a-walking up and he says, Benny, what's the matter? I says, Bob, it's like glue up there. It just will not fold together and come out. Bob said, let me look. At this time, Bob did the one thing that miners know you do not do. He got up on that platform, stood on that lagging. Now he wants to look up into that hole. Bob took his helmet off. And as Bob's starting to go up into that hole, there's a rock about that big around, comes down. Now it didn't hit him on the head, should have. Got him on the arm. Bob come out of that hole. His eyes were about that big around. He didn't know how much rock was falling. And he looked at me and he says, Benny, go get all the Indians that you want. From that day on, anytime they put me on a train, you think I'd touch that steel bar? Nope. If it didn't come down, I blasted it. Now there's another little thing you need to know about the mines in Bisbee. That shift boss has to come and see each and every miner twice a shift. Now some of these shift bosses walk as high as 5 miles before lunch, 5 miles after lunch. And they went to the company and said, look, we're walking too much. We need transportation on every level. The company says, you're right, we'll give it to you. And they did, folks. They built them bicycles that run on rails. I can tell you when this bicycle was built. 1961 is when the banana seat came out. And they told all of those shift bosses, you have to be extra careful with these bikes. You have to understand, we didn't buy them, we built them. They'll go as fast backwards as they will forwards. We didn't know how to hook up the brake system. Now, did we mess with the shift boss? Oh, yes. You know what happens if you leave the right kind of a rock or a piece of wooden wedge on that rail? Well, if you look at that bent up handlebar post, why don't you tell me what his vocabulary was after he smacked it into the wall? And they told us, you miners will not ride that bike. That's like telling kids they can't touch the toys in Walmart. Did I take the bike? Yes, I did. Did I ever bring it back? Never. And if that shift boss walks up and says, I can't find my bike, you tell him, well, look down there, why don't you look over there? And he said, how to get over there? You think we copped out? Nope. We told him Headless John took his bike. Headless John got blamed for everything. Come on, folks, we got some more to go. I'm going to stop here with 3 machines, just line up against that wall. All right. You know what you folks just did? You just walked through a fire door, and it was built in 1917. Did they have fires underground? Sure they had fires underground. Remember, they had candles. Miners get careless, kick a candle over, or maybe he's taking a nap and it burns down into some sawdust. Well, they just come in, shut them steel doors, bring in a fire crew, and snuff it out. Now, in this system right here, this is called a single setup. 2 men have put this post up where they want it, get it secured to the ground, put this bar where they need it, pick this machine up and set it up here. This machine weighs right at 280 pounds. The good thing about this machine is it runs with air. It has water going through it. It also swivels. I can drill a hole there, and a hole there. Spin it around, drill 3 more. The only bad thing about this machine is it uses a steel bit. That's a Timken bit. Timken bits are made in Los Angeles and Denver, Colorado, and it unscrews. And folks, if I was going to try to drill 25 to 26 holes into this wall with this, I better bring about 40 of these bits. This rock behind me will hammer this bit down like a mushroom. Folks, that's hard rock. Now then, this machine here came underground before me, it left before me. I'm so glad I never got to run it. This machine runs on air only. There is no water going through this machine. It'll run. And if I start drilling a hole into that wall right there, I can guarantee you in about 15 minutes I'll fill this room with a white dust powder. One of us could start having a sinus problem. One of us might even start into emphysema. Miners had a name for this old machine. They called it the Widowmaker. You run it very long, you could be gone. Now then, this next little machine, it's a Cadillac. Actually, it's a Gardner Denver jackleg, and it weighs about 165 pounds. Now, the good thing about this machine is it runs with air, has water going through it. It's got a leg that does all of the pushing. If I'm drilling that hole right there, I throw that throttle forward, adjust that air, and stand just like this and drill what is called a 7-foot hole. Now this machine is very fast and it's very loud. I still say, huh, a lot, especially around the house, but it uses a different kind of steel. It uses a square piece of steel, but you also use a tungsten carbide bit. I can drill 40 holes before I knock that off and put another one on. How fast is this machine? I can take this machine and this piece of steel and I can drive it all the way into that wall in 5 to 7 minutes. That's a machine. All machines have a problem. Yes, it runs with air. It's got water going through it. It's got a leg doing the push. Let's say me and my partner are drilling somewhere and up walks a new man. And he'll say, I want to be a miner. Teach me how to drill. Show me where the holes go. And we'd tell him, have at it. Why, he'd run over here, jump on this machine, and throw that throttle forward. Folks, the minute that man put his leg on the other side of this leg, you grabbed a hold of it, and you pulled him away from him. Why? This leg will extend 8 feet. It's also got over 150 pounds of air pressure in it. If it breaks loose from the ground, all of them instantaneously popped up this high first and then went to the 8 feet. You see that handle right there? That handle right there will make a bad man sing soprano in the church choir. You're going to be calling him Squeaky for about 2 weeks. Come on, I'm going to show you how we blasted it. All right, if you look at this wall, it's got these fuses in it. That's called a face. Everything in front of a miner is the face. The back is the back, the bottom is the floor, the sides are called the ribs. And if we was to blast this and get what I wanted, I could take that square set of timber right there, twist it, and go right into that wall. Now that's the back holes, the breast holes, the 2 relievers, the skimmers, and the lifters. This right here, folks, is not a funny face. It's called a 5-hole burn, and it's drilled in this hard rock for a reason. When this center hole goes off, it breaks to these 4 dummy holes. The idea of this is, I've got to create a cavity right here first, 7 feet deep, then 1 hole at a time. If I tried to blast them all at one time, I wouldn't get a foot of this rock. It'll blow right back out of them holes like a shotgun blast. Now, in the early days, I'd take a stick of dynamite, a cap and a fuse, and using a stick like this, put 1 in each hole, gently. Then my habit was to come back to here. I'd take 14 sticks of dynamite, split them with a pocket knife, and as I put them in, mash them. I can mash new dynamite. It's fairly safe. And I'd wind up putting maybe 12 in all the rest of them. Eventually, we quit using so much dynamite. Dynamite's gassy. Well, the nitroglycerin is what's gassy. What we started doing was putting 1 stick of dynamite with a cap and a fuse in each hole. Then, from a big paper sack with an air gun, I filled those holes up with a compound called carbamide. Carbamite's a mixture of coal dust, diesel fuel, and ammonia nitrate. Same thing that blew up Texas, the FBI building, stuff you want to put around your roses, commercial fertilizer. It will explode. All right, let's say it's about 30 minutes before quitting time. I'm going to step to the face with a little board like this called a spinner board. I'm going to take this first fuse that I want to go off. I'm going to cut off about 18 inches of it and put it on that board. Then taking that piece that I cut off, I'm going to take this fuse and measure it out, but I want it to be actually about a 1/2 inch longer than the last one. Throw that one down, pick up this one, measure this one out to be a 1/2 inch longer than the last one. Every fuse that I start cutting is going to be approximately a 1/2 inch longer than the last one. That way I have set this up so that when I light this round, I'm going to start right there. Create that cavity, then 1 hole at a time, and enlarge it. Now let's say it's 15 minutes before quitting time. My partner and I both have a little rod like this called a spitter rod. Has a magnesium solution molded onto it. Burns at 1200 degrees. Why'd we have this? Well, we talked about all that moisture in these mines. These old dynamite fuses were black powder. I've been a-cutting on them. That black powder absorbs moisture. I got a wet bubble on the end of each one of these. I could stand here with the old style Zippo cigarette lighter and never get them lit. This, burning at 1200 degrees to go through that bubble. And I'll start out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, till I light 25 to 26 holes. As soon as I have them all lit, what's left of this, I'm going to throw it down right there. This thing only burns for 40 seconds, folks. Am I starting to tell you something? Definitely. These old dynamite fuses burned 1 foot for 40 seconds. I've cut off 18 inches. By the time I've lit that hole down there, that one's in the hole. It's time for me to take a walk. Now, you never ran into mine because you didn't want to take a chance of stumbling and falling in front of your blast. But we'd have time to walk quickly to the train and go down the driftaways. As they went off, we counted them. If I had the right count, that's fine. If I didn't have the right count, I would tell my shift boss, when I got on top, please have that opposite crew look for a mist hole. And it did happen from time to time. Why? I did not want that opposite crew to come down here, take a pick, take a steel bar, poking around in a bunch of rocks and hit a stick of dynamite that's got a cap in it. He's blasted. Let's take a walk into that big room in there. Pardon?
How many years did you work in mine?
19 and a half. All right, folks, you're at the Southwest Mine. Right here is the shaft. This shaft also happens to be 700 feet deep. It's also called an interior because it's a shaft inside of another mine. Now, then this piece of equipment right there, that's a cage. That's a standard cage. 12 men can ride on that cage. Now this one, it runs with a little electric motor and a hoist up above, and it just go up and down like an elevator. Now if you happen to be down around US 80, around our traffic circle, and you looked across to the southeast side of it and saw that real tall, skinny gallows frame going up, that's the camel shaft. That is the fastest running shaft of all of them. When you came to work on a Monday morning, after a big holiday weekend, and that cager brings that cage up, stops it there, and that shift boss says, let's go, you want to be the first man that gets on that cage, you want to back up to that wall and let the other 11 men back up to you. Why? Especially after a holiday? When that cager pulls that rope, that hoisting engineer drops the brake.